I'm going to read an excerpt from Keys to Great Writing, Mastering the Elements of Composition and Revision by Wilbers. Chapter 2. Precision. Use the right word. Word choice isn't everything. Your effectiveness as a writer also depends on the rhythm and flow of your sentences, the organization of your material into paragraphs, and the arrangement of your paragraphs into a coherent whole. It depends on your handling of content, your point of view, and your rhetorical strategies for engaging your audience. It depends on cosmetic features such as correct grammar and punctuation, and on deeper, more enduring qualities such as originality, creativity, and imagination. But if you want to write with style, word choice is a good place to start. Like notes to a musician, words are the writer's medium. In this chapter, I discuss the second key to great writing: how to choose words that will make your writing more vivid, precise, bold, original, and memorable, and how to avoid certain common word choice errors. Listen carefully. In the spring of my daughter's senior year in high school, she, my wife, and I toured the campus of a university in Chicago. As our group was walking through the student recreation center, our student tour guide said he would take us down to the weight room. Except, he explained, I'm afraid you might hear some profound language down there. Well, from college students, one would hope to hear profound language, especially considering the cost of tuition these days, but I suspect that our congenial host meant was profane language. People who write with authority are people who pay attention to language. They are alert to the sound and meaning of words. As a result, they have at their command the vocabulary they need to express their thoughts with precision and nuance. To write with style, tune your ear to language. Attend to connotation, mood, and feelings, as well as denotation, literal meaning. Remember that no two words are exact synonyms. As I pointed out in my foreword, there is a reason Hemingway didn't call his tale The Elderly Man and the Ocean. Collect good words. Be on the lookout for words that are useful in your everyday writing, for words that suit your style and personality. When you encounter a word you like, make it yours. Consider its meaning and the context in which it is used. Look it up, write it down, remember it, look for occasions to use it well. Browse a dictionary. The next time you're in the reference area of the library, check out one of the 13 volumes of the Oxford English Dictionary, the definitive source of word derivations. Look for words whose meanings are only vaguely familiar to you and study them. Check their root meaning for information that will help you remember them. Learn how to spell and pronounce them. Move them from your larger comprehensive vocabulary, which you depend on as a listener and reader, into your smaller expressive vocabulary, which you depend on as a speaker and writer. Without good words, you're like a fleshlight without good batteries. Use a thesaurus to remind you of words you already know. Whether printed or programmed, a thesaurus is an indispensable tool when used properly. Be wary, however, of using a synonym from a list of suggestions if you're encountering the word for the first time. Use a thesaurus to remind you of words you have some experience with and feeling for. A thesaurus will help you not only rewrite the familiar, you can't edify an antiquated canine concerning novel maneuvers, but find the best, most precise word to convey your meaning. Compare, for example, his claim to represent the Rolling Stones was deceptive with his claim to represent the Rolling Stones was fraudulent. A thesaurus also can help you make your points with less monotony and more precision by suggesting alternatives. Compare, surrounded by careless word choice, the careful writer must always be careful, with besieged by thoughtless word choice, the careful writer must always be on guard. Make a definite impression. Not all words serve a writer's purpose equally well. As you continue to broaden your vocabulary and develop your style, you will find that certain types of words are more useful than others. Prefer the concrete and the particular to the abstract and the general. It would be difficult to explore some of the great themes in literature and philosophy without abstract words like truth, beauty, and goodness. But as a rule, effective writing draws its energy from specificity, not from abstraction and generality. You're more likely to make a definite impression on your reader if you use specific rather than abstract words. Rather than, we were affected by the news, write, we were relieved by the news, or we were devastated by the news. Use words that convey precisely and vividly what you are thinking or feeling. Compare. Cutting down all those beautiful old trees really changed the appearance of the landscape. With, in 2 weeks, the loggers transformed a 10,000-acre forest of old-growth red and white pine into a field of ruts and stubble. Appeal to the 5 senses. As the novelist Joseph Conrad advised, don't tell the reader, show the reader. The best way to avoid vagueness and to write vividly is to appeal to your reader's senses. You can go beyond merely telling to showing by using concrete words or sense words, words that refer to things that can be seen, smelled, heard, tasted, or touched. Rather than, she leads a hectic life, write, her life is so hectic she moved dirty dishes to a new apartment. Rather than, the cardinal liked to have dinner late in the afternoon, just before the sun began to fade, write, as Willa Cather does in Death Comes for the Archbishop. The cardinal had an eccentric preference for beginning his dinner at this time in the late afternoon when the vehemence of the sun suggested motion. The light was full of action and had a peculiar quality of climax, of splendid finish. It was both intense and soft, with a ruddiness as of much multiplied candlelight, an aura of red in its flames. It bored into the ilex trees, illuminating their mahogany trunks and blurring their dark foliage. It warmed the bright green of the orange trees and the rose of the oleander blooms to gold, sent congested spiral patterns quivering over the damask and plate and crystal. When writers think of detail, they tend to think only of visual detail, but detail that appeals to the other senses, especially the sense of smell, can evoke strong feelings within your reader. Rather than, whenever I go home to Brownsville, I have mixed feelings, write as Alfred Kazin does in A Walker in the City. Every time I go back to Brownsville, it is as if I had never been away. From the moment I step off the train at Rockaway Avenue and smell the leak out of the men's room, then the pickles from the stand just below the subway steps, an instant rage comes over me, mixed with dread and some unexpected tenderness. Conversely, to obfuscate or obscure your meaning, use abstract words, pacification, collateral damage, ethnic cleansing, that do not evoke an image in the mind of the reader. As George Orwell contends in his famous essay, Politics in the English Language, the aim of political speech and writing often is to defend the indefensible. People are imprisoned for years without trial, or shot in the back of the neck, or sent to die of scurvy in Arctic lumber camps. This is called elimination of unreliable elements. Such phraseology is needed if one wants to name things without calling up mental pictures of them. As Orwell's point is often paraphrased, whenever someone uses language that fails to evoke a mental image, you should be concerned about that person's intent. Prefer strong action verbs over weak abstract nouns. As I will discuss in Chapter 3, verbs are the most important part of speech. For a lively, energetic style rather than a noun-heavy, lethargic style, choose strong action verbs, such as collide and recommend, rather than weak verbs linked to abstract nouns, such as have a collision or make a recommendation. Rather than, it is my suggestion that we make a commitment to the solution of this problem, write, I suggest we commit ourselves to solving this problem. Or simply, we need to solve this problem. Avoid sexist language. Which of the following sentences do you find less objectionable? A. A good manager knows his strengths and weaknesses. B. A good manager knows her strengths and weaknesses. C. A good manager knows his or her strengths and weaknesses. D. A good manager knows their strengths and weaknesses. E. Good managers know their strengths and weaknesses. My guess is you choose E. By making both the noun managers and the pronoun their plural, you avoid a number of problems. The exclusive use of the masculine pronoun his, the exclusive use of the feminine pronoun hers, the inclusive but awkward his and or her, and the distraction shift from the singular manager to the plural their. Converting nouns and pronouns from the singular to the plural is perhaps the most graceful way to write inclusively. Here are some other practical methods of avoiding sexist language. Replace the masculine pronoun with an article, a, an, or the. Change the accused has a right to confront his accuser to the accused has a right to confront the accuser. Use a second person. Change if a new associate works hard, he might make partner to if you work hard, you might make partner. Eliminate the masculine pronoun. Change ask any feminist and he'll tell you so to any feminist will tell you so. As a last resort, use the inclusive but awkward he or she or his or her. Change have you ever admired an otherwise inept CEO for his ability to give good speeches to have you ever admired an otherwise inept CEO for his or her ability to give good speeches? Although slashed constructions such as he/she and his/hers are inclusive, they're awkward, so it is best to avoid them. Though not an acceptable choice to many readers, sentence D, a good manager knows their strengths and weaknesses, merits comment. More and more writers are mixing singular nouns and plural pronouns, and according to Casey Miller and Kate Swift in the Handbook of Non-Sexist Writing, they are doing so on good authority. For centuries, many writers, including Shakespeare, commonly used they to refer to both plural and singular nouns. The third edition of the American Heritage Dictionary offers this comment. Third-person plural forms, such as their, have a good deal to recommend them. They're admirably brief and entirely colloquial, and may be the only sensible choice in informal style. The dictionary goes on to point out, however, that this solution ignores a persistent intuition that expressions such as everyone and each student should in fact be treated as grammatically singular, and it recommends that writers who are concerned about avoiding both grammatical and social problems are best advised to use coordinate forms such as his or her. It concludes, the entire question is unlikely to be resolved in the near future. Here is my position. Let's declare the singular they acceptable when it refers to a noun or another pronoun used in an indefinite sense and be done with it. If either John or Jane wants to see me, tell them to come right in. I'm ready to see them. I'm eager to see them. I'm tired of seeing him or her. But we should continue to respect singular and plural agreement when a pronoun refers to a noun or another pronoun used in a definite sense. In other words, everyone has a right to their opinion, and I, for one, am ready to hear it. John or Jane, however, will have to wait a long time for my receptionist to finish their lunch. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something about good writing, because I did, but I learned even more as I was reading this chapter for you. If you want to join the practice of reading out loud in English, if you want to practice showing what you mean to native speakers of English, join our community of practice where we do these exercises together and where everybody gets individual feedback on their work. You practice, you get feedback, you iterate, you get better. You practice again, you get even better. And the better it gets, the better it gets. And the better it gets, the better it can get. That's important to remember. In our community of practice, there is a section, Read Out Loud with Me, where you can hear more audios of how I read and you will see the text of what I'm reading, and you can download the books from my personal collection. I share them with the community members only. When you practice reading those pages yourself, you don't have to start with pages, by the way. You can start with one paragraph. You can seek honest feedback. Do people hear you when you speak? Do people see the message that you're trying to show them? Do people understand what it is that you're trying to say when you read? Very often it's not really about your bad accent or about your bad pronunciation. It's more about following the rhythm of the English language. It's more about stressing the words correctly and finding the right words to stress. And trust me, this can be trained. It's not rocket science, but what you need is a lot of high quality feedback from people who care. And to receive feedback, you need to actively seek feedback, which means you need to record yourself, share it only with the community members. You don't have to share it with the entire world, and seek feedback from more competent learners. I had to learn this by myself. And what I'm practicing right now is I'm practicing giving feedback to myself. But your feedback is valuable too. So if you want to comment on my reading, if you're a native speaker, please share your perception too. That is extremely valuable. And if you're somebody who wants to learn to show rather than tell people what you mean, join the community and practice with us and learn from people who are ready to help.